government, and the end game of one world government is not free trade and prosperity, but serfdom, you can cherry pick quotes and make it look real scary like. And hell, if one source doesn't say anything scary about, say, eugenics, then find another source and then just claim the second source is connected to the first source. Like the World Life Foundation is in cahoots with DuPont. For example, Jones claims another group called the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, has the stated mission to eliminate all nation-states in favor of a powerful world government administered by a tiny elite. Oh, scary. But let's look at the CFR's mission. The Council's mission is promoting understanding of foreign policy and America's role in the world. Meetings are convened at which government officials, global leaders, and prominent members debate major foreign policy issues. Those rat bastards. One gets a sense that if Jones was ever invited to one of these meetings, after the free donuts were gone, Jones would be bored spitless. Now, a few people who are globalists, like CNN's Ted Turner, subscribe to the belief that the world is vastly overpopulated. So they believe the ideal world population is 500 million people. I personally don't think so. I think I read that if we were all perfectly happy to live like Japanese in Tokyo, the current world population could be contained in Texas. That probably wouldn't please Jones, but regardless, one can hold the belief that we need to reduce the world population and not believe we need to get there via mass murder. Oh yeah, and Jones warns us we're now in the final stage of their nefarious plan. This somewhat reminds me of UFO nuts who always claim we're just on the verge of some major announcement. Or perpetual motion energy scammers who claim they're just on the verge of commercializing their technology. This claim crops up every year for the last, 50 years. So, if you watch the half-dozen videos on this topic Jones has released over the last decade, I would bet he's probably made that claim in each video. There, I'm making a testable hypothesis. Endgame also goes into a bit of history. Well, in 140 minutes, a lot of history. It would appear one world government has been in the planning stages for the last couple hundred years. I mean, what's taking them so long? It sure seems if you want to make people into serfs, it's better to do it when they're still largely serfs. Not software engineers, airline pilots, doctors, university professors, journalists, accountants, you know? Anyway, we're told an eerie story about how the London branch of the Rothschilds financed the UK against Napoleon. The Rothschilds are always used as a code for Jewish banker conspiracy, for those that don't want to come right out and seem like lame-ass anti-Semites. A small bit of history about Jews and banking. Back in the Middle Ages, Jews were not allowed to enter many professions. One of the few things they were allowed to do was make loans because Christians were not supposed to be charging other Christians interest on loans. So as nation-states became more important and needed sources of financing, of course, many Jews had the skills and talents to be bankers. Anyway, Jones tells us the Rothschilds had their informants watching the Battle of Waterloo. Nelson won, and the Rothschild informants got their info to the Rothschilds first. The Rothschilds knew which way the stock market would turn upon announcement of victory. They bought up all the shares they could get. When the news hit, the Rothschilds were vastly, vastly rich, all because of their wormy spies. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. The Rothschilds were smart and understood that information was key to making good business decisions. They used messenger pigeons to get their news before anyone else. Endgame also tells us World War I was started by the Rothschilds. See, while we all believed it was started by some Serbian nutjob assassinating the Archduke Ferdinand, it turns out the hit was conducted by a Serbian secret society with connections to British and French intelligence. Okay, I'm not sure what the Rothschild connection was, and don't expect Jones to actually footnote this claim with a source. But hey, even if it were true, the Austro-Hungarian Empire wasn't exactly an ally of France and Britain. Of course you'd have intelligence contacts with anyone who could conduct attacks behind the lines if it ever came to war. Jones also claims the forerunner to the UN, the League of Nations, was a British creation. Now, it sure seems to me the League of Nations idea was one of Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, not a British idea. In fact, it's a little hard to believe the Brits would want to dilute their considerable control over the world with an organization that might give others a say in how things are being run. Next up in Jones's little 15-minute tour of how the vast elite conspiracy has been operating is something called the business plot. Back during the Great Depression, Roosevelt was seriously screwing up the American economy. Many people think Roosevelt was America's great savior out of the Great Depression, but pretty much every time the American economy started to recover, naturally, Roosevelt instituted some new interventionist policy that screwed it all up. For a great story about the Roosevelt government, check out the book The Forgotten Man, A New History of the Great Depression. The Roosevelt government actually jailed butchers in New York for daring to sell chickens for the lowest price. Anyway, according to Jones, the robber barons at the time were ready to overthrow the government in a military coup because they were upset the way Roosevelt was screwing things up. But was there really such a plot? Well, there was a congressional investigation. During the Great Depression, World War I vets weren't getting the money the government promised them. Wall Street bond salesmen approached a very popular Marine general named Smedley Butler to lead a military coup. Butler was a highly decorated soldier and an upstanding Quaker, and during the Great Depression was going to bat for the World War I veterans that served under him to get their benefits. Anyway, the bond salesman approached Butler and claimed he was working for the DuPonts and a cabal of American corporations, and they were ready to back a military coup. Butler, being an upstanding soldier, immediately reported the coup to the authorities, and a congressional investigation was launched. Now, it seems kind of weird the elitist cabal would be so foolish as to go to an upstanding soldier who's going to turn them in ASAP. Didn't they do their research? It sure would have been easy to find another guy to lead the disaffected World War I vets. And the congressional investigation sure didn't seem to unearth a nest of elites. It really just appears like you've got this bond salesman guy who is operating on his own. I'll tell Smedley I got moneyed elites backing me, and then once I get him on board, I can really go to the moneyed elites and sell them my coup idea. I mean, it could have worked that way too. Jones moves on to the connection between the British royal family and the Nazis. In Endgame, he claims Edward VIII was forced to abdicate because of his public support for Hitler. Well, it sure seems to me history records this abdication because he wanted to marry a divorced American woman. So, after this little history detour, Jones gets back on his attack on the Bilderbergs. We're told that until the 1980s, the media steadfastly denied the group's existence. Of course, Jones supplies no source. Anyone coming to this video with at least an open mind, one grounded in good scholarship, is going to notice Jones tossing out claim after claim without ever supporting it. Worse, there's not a single dissenting voice in this whole flick. Jones, a media guy, should at least be aware of the token skeptic bit, so you can claim you were fair and balanced. Nope, nada. This is a video solely for those who have already drunk his Kool-Aid, or a similar brand. At the 36-minute mark, Jones claims Americans who attend Bilderberg meetings are in violation of the Logan Act. Jones then cites what one thinks is a quote from the Logan Act, but is not, in fact, a reading of the Act. It's merely Jones's interpretation. Jones claims that any member of the government who meets with a foreign official is committing a felony. Really? No. Here's the text of the Logan Act. Private correspondence with foreign governments. Any citizen of the United States, wherever he may be, who, without authority of the United States, directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government, or any officer or agent thereof, with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government, or any officer or agent thereof, in relation to any disputes or controversies with the United States, or to defeat the measures of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both. Let me highlight part of this, in relation to any disputes or controversies. Here's a tip-off what the Act is about, and you have to read its history. The Act was passed in 1798 in direct response to the actions of a state legislature who was unilaterally trying to negotiate peace terms with France during a little mini-war called the Quasi-War. The Act was used only once in 1803. It's never been used since. It's never even faced a court challenge, and many constitutional experts don't think it would stand up against a court challenge. Anyway, Jones and his followers online seem to make a big deal about this act, as if it's some cornerstone of American law like the Sherman Antitrust Act. But let me read what the State Department had to say about the Logan Act when 2 U.S. senators visited Cuba in 1975. Quote, "The clear intent of this provision is to prohibit unauthorized persons from intervening in disputes between the United States and foreign governments. Nothing in Section 953, the Logan Act, however, would appear to restrict members of the Congress from engaging in discussions with foreign officials in pursuance of their legislative duties under the Constitution." So Jones, I'm afraid, is talking completely out of his ass. business and political leaders all getting together to talk about how to make America